that little portion of the video, I discovered something on Amazon which allows me to do that, which is like this little like 0.5. I don't have it with me right now, but it's like you just like clip it onto your phone, because I record all of this with my phone and it gives you like a 0.5 angle, and I just thought it was really cool because I feel like I see a lot of those really aesthetic hardcore lifters, you know. I see all of them do it, and I think it's like super cool. And I'm still trying to figure out what type of content, like in terms of gym, if I want to go like, you know, super like high definition, like whoa, you can see literally every single striation of my muscle because my camera's so high quality, or if I want to do something that's a little bit more my pay grade, which is the like old retro, you know, just kind of old school vibes. Even though I don't think that's like what I look like or what I kind of give off, but I really always have like a deep appreciation for that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about, let's see, what do I want to talk about today? Well, what's been happening in my life? I've been having a lot of burnout recently with school. Yes, I'm a freshman in college. Yes, I'm a business major, but that doesn't mean I can't feel things. Nah, I just want to go home. Like I just miss home a lot. I think I didn't realize how much I did until I actually went home for spring break and saw my friends again and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I love my friends here, and like I actually recently had one of the a blessing to train with one of them at my gym. And he's a recent friend I made here. You know who you are. Well, you too know who you are if you watch this. And it was kind of interesting to train with someone new, if you get what I mean. Like, he's not new to training. He's done football stuff, and like the other one, they're both very athlete type trainers, not bodybuilding type. And it was really interesting to see them train and how they talked about training, because as someone who has had 5 years to develop his training philosophy, I suppose, which is kind of like how I treat any type of philosophy, which is, or in fact any way of life that I adopt, is I look at it, like I'll look at many philosophies and I'll think like, oh man, this is like super cool. But do I choose to live by it by the book? Not really. I just adopt the things that I truly believe will make me happier as a person. I do the same thing with religion. There's some religions which I kind of deem as sometimes a philosophy when you get rid of all the, you know, outer worldly stuff. And I adopt like those parts of those religions to implement it to my everyday life. And I think there's it's like omnitheism or something along those lines. I forget what it's called, but that's what I do. And so my training philosophy has gone through the same kind of thing, which is clearly very inspired by Mike Mentzer, you know, train hard, train to absolute failure. But then also influenced by Dorian Yates, which Dorian Yates was also influenced by Mike Mentzer. But the idea of like giving it your everything and not training stupidly, only doing exercises he liked. Like Dorian Yates didn't do the most optimal exercises. He did like the Yates row. Not too optimal, but he loved that movement so much that he did it. And so I do the same thing. I choose movements only I truly love with all my being. So I know I put my everything into those movements, you know. And so it was interesting training with my friend who had been introduced into the gym by, you know, football, and seeing how our training philosophies differed. Also in a matter of training maturity. I've had 5 years to develop mine. I think I about had a year or so. And so it hit me where one of them asked me, like, bro, why do you train this hard? Like, what's the goal? What's the reason? And I gotta be honest, for the first time in a long time, I actually didn't know the answer about something internally, about my mind. I feel like I'm always not always, I feel like I try to be a very mindful person, very aware of what's happening internally within me, and I address those things. But for the first time, I actually didn't have an answer for him of why do I train hard? And so what that has led me to do, and anyone else who's been training for a good long while, what is your reason? And I think for me, when I look down, you know, down the timeline, I really started training to get girls, right? Like, I wanted a girlfriend. I thought training would somehow make me cooler, somehow make me more well liked or something. Which I guess in essence can be training to be less insecure, which anyone also is trained for that reason. You know that doesn't really work, right? And so throughout the years, my training reason hasn't really changed. I've just kind of become like willingly ignorant to the kind of false insecurity, in the sense of I know deep down that training, being big, will not help me get a girlfriend. It won't help me be perceived differently. It will just it's basically like a cope, right? But I've been willingly ignorant of that, and I've been aware of that, but not aware enough to actually address it, that reason itself has never changed. And now I'm going through this process of, am I even okay with the idea of my reason changing? I mean, I've changed so much. I originally started training to get a girlfriend, but now my training has led me into improving all facets of my life, into becoming a more mindful person, into actually taking time, the same time that I put into the gym to discipline my body. I have now reflected that also into improving me as a person, gaining a better personality, gaining a deeper understanding of my awareness, gaining so much soul, I would say, is what I mean. But my training kind of got left in the dust, I guess, in a way. And now I'm not sure if I'm okay with my reason for training changing, because of how much I've kind of tried to keep it in its little shell, you know, keeping it in its shell that I am unaware of, but I know is actually doing me more harm. All this to say is, God, I feel like Kevin Lebroni, you know, what's your reason? But genuinely, what is your reason for training? And I've always found it weird too, how when people, I always had a very tough time understanding, when people went in the gym and half-assed it. Or when people went in the gym to be like athletes. I never understood it. Why could you not want to be as big as fucking possible, as strong as possible? That style of training is always people that just train to be healthy. One of my friends, he trains to just be healthy. And that has always shocked me, because I'm like, how do you not have the internal push to want to always be better, to never be satisfied, to always want something, to always want to be bigger, be stronger, be something, you know? And it hit me where now, perhaps my reason is just straight up insecurity. Maybe I can't even conceptualize or understand the idea of someone not being insecure within their own body, and then constantly pushing themselves because of that. And coming to realize this, I realize I'm actually going against one of my newer core philosophies and core kind of ideals that I live my life in, which is I want to not suffer needlessly. I don't want to suffer for no point. When I wrestled in high school, when I do tough things, I always like to call it willingly suffering, so that way you know you grow. Because to suffer is to grow, you know? And I realized that continuing this cycle where I just train out of insecurity, out of what people said to me in my past, what I thought about myself in the past, who I was in my past, it's perpetuating a cycle of needless suffering and insecurity, actually, because the more I think about that insecurity, the more that scientifically speaking, not even spiritually or soulfully, if I continue to think about that, insecurity, it's gonna hardwire a neural network into my brain where I'm gonna be okay thinking insecurely, because my brain will choose what's comfortable to think, which I've convinced it's comfortable to think I'm insecure, you know? But it is a cycle of just suffering, of needless suffering, suffering for no point. There's the growth in the gym, I guess, but it dampers other parts of my life so much, because I can't relate to people. I can't relate to people when talking about the gym, because the way in which I think about the gym is so deeply rooted in insecurity that it almost makes me talking about it a way of trying to be vulnerable, which is scary. And I try to accept vulnerability as a fact. You know, it is going to be scary, but it's something that just shouldn't be, because I love the gym. You know, it's creating this toxic relationship, and training out of the fear of my old self or the embarrassment of my old self or something. It's just your past self is not something you need to overcome. And I think I've been fighting that truth for like such a long time that my past, my insecurities, all these things are things I need to fight. And like just constantly need to be at war with, rather than just accepting the fact that they happened and becoming a better person out of that. And that's why I always say, accept new accept new experiences, because if I didn't choose to say yes to one of my friends saying, "Hey, can I train with you at your gym?" I would have never come to that realization. I would have just continuously lived in willing ignorance of something that I wasn't even aware I was being willingly ignorant to. And then you can also argue maybe because it wasn't in my perception that it didn't really affect me and it didn't really affect my perceivable happiness. But to that I say, try to know as much as possible. Like, because you know what you know what you don't know, and then you don't know what you don't know. And that you don't know what you don't know part is so huge. Just the more you can understand, I find that the more enjoyable you can make your reality, but it's definitely harder to enjoy your reality if you are very aware. But to me that seems like there's a net positive there, which is if I can only be this happy because I'm this aware, I don't really want that. But if I can be this happy and I'm this aware, but being this aware means that I may become much sadder, my lows may be much more low, I see that as still a win, because my happiness can be so much higher than whatever this is, because of my awareness. But yeah, it's just something to think about. I just had no idea. Like, I've been training so hard recently, and I've been training so consistently, and I find so much joy in this thing that I do, which is going to the gym. And yet I never knew the reason why was so shadowed and crowded and in insecurity. Maybe it's just that I forgot about it, but I don't know. Like, when I really just sat down, which I sit down here, I try to sit down here at least like 4 times a week, or in front of some body of water, if you can see. Oh my God, it's such a beautiful day. But like, I try to just sit and ponder. I try to just sit and think, where like things that I don't really like to think about in passing, such as when I'm out in public or those passing shower thoughts. I have a notes app of just things I want to think about, questions that I really want to delve into, and just giving your brain, because a lot of times you don't even need some like self-help or I don't say you don't need therapy, but a lot of problems can be figured out if you just allow yourself the time to think about it. And in today's world where we're so full of distractions and so able to just, pick this thing up and just drown out all our thoughts, we often lose that time. The time to be bored, the time to just gain awareness, really. And I feel like awareness is gained in the boredom, because your mind is left to do nothing except think about its thoughts. That stupid TikTok audio, Someone who thinks all the time has nothing to think about thoughts. But yeah, it was such a nice experience also training with him. Like, it's been a while since I've trained with like not a newbie, but someone that training wise is much younger than me. Not saying my friends back home, but because I've gotten my friends back home to really understand training to the degree that I do, and part of me kind of regrets making them do that, because I feel like I've taken all the fun out of it. Let's go hit chest, 20 sets of chest and only chest till we have such a huge chest pump and we're just like accumulating fatigue and that's it. But like having someone that just has a completely different training style, completely different upbringing, completely different way of being, and training with them, it was very eye-opening. It was very fun. I actually enjoyed it a lot. So that's probably gonna end this video. I know it's probably like a short one, and it wasn't as cinematic as my last one, which, by the way, please check out my last video, because God, I feel like such a YouTuber begging this shit. But please check out my last video, because that is easily the most fun I've ever had making video. I was back with my friends. We were, doing all this stuff. It was kind of like a group project with my friends. Like, I had one of my friends, I was texting him being like, yo, is this tough? And
genuinely one of my favorite videos of all time. So please go check that out. It's not too much of a long one. It's just really cinematic, but whatever. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. And let me know what you want to see. Let me know what you want to see, because I'm not gonna lie, I feel like I get tunnel visioned, or like maybe a little bored. Not bored. Bored's not the right word. I don't know. Things start moving like very mundanely with this style of like YouTube that I do. So just let me know what y'all want to see. I'm trying to be as much of an open book, because now I am a niche internet persona. So, but yeah. Peace. Love yourselves.